Muy buenos días a todos. Welcome. Bienvenidos a Atlanta. And thank you, Mayor Franklin, for your vision, your dedication, and for hosting us once again this year. We have about 1,000 leaders from government, from academia, from business, from all over the hemisphere, from Canada to Argentina, to the southernmost tip of South America. And we are honored, of course, to have three heads of state, President Uribe, President Saca, President Colom. We are honored to have people from North America, from Central America, from South America, and very importantly, from the Caribbean. So we have representatives here from over 30 different countries. And we thank you for your interest. We thank you for your leadership. We have the Vice President of Nicaragua is here with us today. We have ministers. We have government officials. We have ambassadors. We have members of the private sector. We have members of the press. It's always good to remind us that we have members of the press and other distinguished guests. Since last time we met, there have been accomplishments throughout the hemisphere. And I've tried to capture some here. I won't be able to mention them all, but it's always good to highlight what people are doing throughout the hemisphere so that we can learn. The idea of this conference is to learn from each other. No one has all the answers. We hope that at the end of this meeting, each of you will have at least 3 or 4 new ideas that you can take back to your country and say, I want to try that. I learned something about what another country is doing, and I want to try it in my country. That is the purpose of this conference. But here's some positive developments since our last meeting. In Mexico, the number of days to start a business has been cut nearly in half. In the Dominican Republic, the time required to register property has been reduced from 107 days to 60 days, making it easier to get financing and to start a business. Those are tangible results that will make a difference. Uruguay and Nicaragua have hosted successful competitiveness forums and conferences in their country, also focused on small businesses. And we know one thing from all of our economies: small businesses drive the majority of all jobs. In the U.S., it's about 70% of all new jobs are created by small businesses. And this is an interesting number that I repeat often because I find it incredibly dramatic. 50% of all new jobs are created by businesses that are less than 5 years old. So while we often think that the economy is about big multinational companies, it isn't. The lifeblood of the economies in our hemisphere, the energy, the vitality, is small business, entrepreneurs, people with a dream, people with a willingness to take a risk, to start a new business, and to grow. Trade is also, of course, a powerful source of growth. In our country, in the U.S., 12% of our GDP is now driven by exports. And we have had this year double-digit increases in trade to countries in our hemisphere, and I'll mention the 5 where our trade is growing the fastest: Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. Very strong double-digit growth rates of two-way trade. Yet the progress that has been made is still sensitive, it's still fragile, because we know that there are people who would like to go back to an era where there wasn't much trade, to an era of economic isolationism, which we believe would be a big mistake. And it is our leadership that will keep the hemisphere on the right track, trading, attracting investment, creating jobs, creating prosperity. At the same time, we know that there is no shortage of competition. And as we mentioned yesterday, we believe, and the numbers show, that in the hemisphere we compete less with each other than we do with countries that are far away. So very often we think that a reduction of jobs is due to trade inside of the hemisphere, and people will blame it on NAFTA or CAFTA or some other trade agreement. The reality is that we complement each other. There are a lot of integrated supply chains in our hemisphere, and very often the competition is coming from countries that are far away, not from countries inside of the hemisphere. We're interested in being more competitive for a very simple reason, because through competition and through being more competitive, we create more jobs, we encourage growth, and we help our people have better lives. That's what competitiveness is all about. We can give people in remote areas and the poorest within our cities the chance to live better lives. They need the opportunity to move out of poverty and the ability to share in the benefits that being part of the global community can bring. So this is about helping everyone, about lifting people, about creating jobs, about giving people better hope for the future. One of the great examples that I use about hope and growth and progress is, of course, Colombia. Colombia is a great example of what can be achieved by increasing security, stability, democracy, and a commitment to markets. Colombia's turnaround has been nothing short of spectacular. Colombia has significantly reduced poverty and unemployment. 92% of Colombian children enrolled in school. At the same time, Colombia's economy has continued to grow quickly, with GDP nearly doubling since 2002. This kind of positive change is good for Colombia, and it's good for our hemisphere. As President Bush said, we need to work with our neighbors to build a Western Hemisphere of freedom and prosperity, a hemisphere bound together by shared ideals and free trade. Our future cannot be separated from the future of our neighbors. Today we have a very ambitious agenda, and it will carry on into tomorrow, about ways that we can improve our growth rates, ways that we can learn from each other. We have 30 sessions today and tomorrow, and we'll be covering primarily 4 topics, although, as you can imagine, there'll be subtopics that flow out of these big 4 themes. One is travel and tourism. 2 is trade logistics. 3 is renewable energy. And 4, alliances in business and education. Let me just talk a little bit about travel and tourism. We know that this is one of the most important industries in our hemisphere. It's a service industry that's constantly changing to meet the demands of customers throughout the world. Travel and tourism account for billions of dollars in spending, employing thousands of businesses, both large and small. In the state of Georgia, tourism generates approximately $28 billion of revenues annually, and it supports about 200,000 jobs. From the rainforest of the Amazon, to the ancient ruins in Peru, to the beaches of the Bahamas, throughout the hemisphere, in every single country, there are destinations that tourists want to visit. Our challenge, of course, is to maximize the positive impact of travel and tourism. In the U.S. economy, travel and tourism and industries related to travel and tourism represent about 8 million jobs. So this is big, big business, and it creates a lot of jobs, and it allows people to understand different countries and to open